Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video I'll talk about the concepts related to average that will be helpful in answering the questions on the quantitative section of GRE. So the first key idea about the average is regarding the average when all the observations in the series are same. So if all the observations are same, the average of the series will be the same number. For example, all the numbers are 5 in this series, so the average will be 5. So this concept can be used while answering the questions like this. So in this figure, all the 8 angles measure a degree. So if we find the average will be equal to a degree. So the correct answer choice is A. So in this case we need not find the value of A, we need not worry about it because all the answer choices are in terms of A. So the second key idea is about finding the average when we can predict the total of the observations. So when we can predict the total value, finding average would be an easy task. For example, consider a triangle. Consider a triangle whose angles are x, 2x, and 4x. So we know that the sum of the angles in a triangle is 180 degree and there are 3 angles. So in this case the average measure of the angle would be 60 degree. And without knowing the value of x, we can calculate the average measure. So now let us take an example. There are 8 angles in this figure and we have been asked to find the average. So we know that the sum of all these 8 angles will be equal to 360 degree because they complete a full circle, and we divide it by 8 and the average will be 45. So our correct option is 45 in this case. So even if the angles are given here in different numbers, so they have been given just to kill our time in the exam, we have to simply calculate the average in terms of numbers, and we know that the total is 360. So we divide it by 8 and our answer comes out. So let us now take another example. In this example we have to find the average measure of the angles in the figure alongside. So this is quadrilateral. We know that the sum of the total angles will be equal to 360 degree and there are 4 angles. So the average will be equal to 90 degree. And since 90 is one of the option here, it is our correct answer because it is a single answer choice type of questions in the exam. Because here it has not been dictated that select all the answers that apply. So only one of the answer must be correct and we need not evaluate these 2 numbers. I mean we need not calculate the value of A here. So now let us take another example. So in this example we have been said that A is the average of the 8 angles. So there are 8 angles, 2 lines have been intersected by a line. So we haven't been said that these lines are parallel, so we just have to find the average of the 8 angles. So we know that the sum of these 4 angles is 360 degree and the sum of these 4 is 360 degree. So the total is 720 degree and we divide it by 8 and the average comes out to be 90 degree. So our correct answer is C. So now we move to third key idea. This tells us about the effect of adding an observation 0 to the series. So it says that adding a 0 observation to the series, it affects the mean value unless all other observations are 0. So for example, in series X, all of the observations are 0, and here mean value is 0, and adding one another 0 does not have any effect on the mean value. But now consider this series where all observations are not 0. So here average is 2, and now here you add one observation 0, and the average value will be 6 divided by 4, which is less than 2. So in this case the average will be smaller. But this is not always the case. I mean, adding 0 will not always reduce the value of average. For this, consider this example. So here average will be, this is minus negative 20, negative 32, negative 24. So negative 24 by 3, which is negative 8. And now we add 0 here. So now this becomes negative 24 divided by 4, which is negative 6. So in this case, the value of average has increased from negative 8 to negative 6. So now we can make an idea in our mind. That idea is if x bar is positive, if x bar is positive and you add an observation 0, then the value of x bar will be reduced. It is because the same positive number will be divided by a larger integer. So the value of x bar will go down. And if x bar is negative, then you add 0 and the same negative number will be divided by a larger or higher integer. So in this case, though the absolute value of the average will reduce, the negative sign before the absolute value will indeed make the number larger than the previous. I mean, just take this example in your mind. Adding 0 has reduced the value in absolute terms from 8 to 6, but with this minus sign, negative 6 is larger than negative 8. So this conclusion follows from these two examples. Now we can do this quantitative comparison question. Here the average of the 4 numbers, here the average of the 5 numbers. The 4 numbers are same. So here the sum of the 4 numbers is divided by 4. Here the same total is divided by 5. So this is greater than this because this has been divided by a smaller number. So now we move to key idea 4. It simply tells that the average will always remain between the maximum and minimum value. So we can write this way: x minimum is always less than average of x is always less than x maximum. So for example, the 3 observations are negative 10, 20 and 50. Its average is 20. So the average value is greater than the minimum value and less than the maximum value, and this is always true. So we can take another example. The minimum temperature of a city is 70 degrees Fahrenheit and the maximum temperature is 97 degrees Fahrenheit. then the average temperature will be greater than 72 but smaller than 97. So now we move to key idea 5. So this key idea 5 is very much important for the exam. So this tells us that if the numbers are different in the series, at least one number should be greater than the average and at least one should be less than the average. So for example, consider 1, 2 and 3. So here average is 2. So now we take what is called the deviation principle. So the deviation principle simply takes the difference between the observation and the mean value. So this is simply xi minus x bar. So 1 minus 2 is -1, 2 minus 2 is 0 and 3 minus 2 is +1. So according to the deviation principle, the positive deviation should always equal the negative deviation. So for the positive deviations equal to the negative deviation, there must be at least one number which is smaller than mean and at least one number which is larger than the mean value. So you can check this deviation principle with any example. Now we take an example here. The average of 3 numbers is 10. Which of the following is possible if the 3 numbers are different? So please keep in mind that this principle is not applicable if the numbers are same. So in this case, average is same and there is no argument that at least one should be smaller than 10 and one should be larger than 10. This applies only when the numbers are different. So now we evaluate the alternatives. So this says that 10 equals to 10, 11. So now we calculate deviation. If we assume that the average is 10, so the deviations are 0, 0 and +1. So in this case, the sum of the deviation is not 0, or the positive deviation does not cancel out with the -1. So this cannot be our answer. So in this case, 10, 11, 12. So now again we take the deviation with mean. So deviation is 0, +1, +2. Again, the positive deviation are not equal in absolute terms with negative deviation, or the sum of deviation is not 0. So this cannot be our answer. So consider this case. This is 9 is less than 10 equal to 10. Again, the negative deviation -1, 0, 0. So sum of the deviation is not 0. And the mean value cannot be 10. So the only possibility is this one. Consider this example 9, 10, 11. So in this case, the deviations are 0, +1, -1. So in this case, the sum of the deviations is 0 and this is our only possibility. So answer choice 4 is correct. So now we move to key idea 6. So this is the deviation principle that I recently talked. So this deviation principle says that the sum of the deviation must be 0, or the total deviation below the average must be equal to the total deviation above the average. So we clarify this with an example. So here mean value is 3. Now we take deviation. 1 minus 3 is -2, 2 minus 3 is -1, 3 minus 3 is 0, 4 minus 3 is 1, 5 minus 3 is 2. So the sum of deviation is positive 3, which is above the mean. The sum of deviation is negative 3, which is below the mean. So in absolute terms, the deviations are equal. So this principle can also be stated as the sum of deviations must be 0. The positive deviation must cancel out the negative deviations. So we can use this idea to answer this question. If the average on the 4 tests is 60, what should be the marks to be obtained on the 5th test to raise the average score to 65? So now there are 5 tests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our average should be 65. Now let us assume for the simple case all the marks are 60 in the first 4 tests, so that the average is 60. So now what are the negative deviations below the mean? So 60 minus 65 is negative 5, 60 minus 65 is negative 5, negative 5, negative 5. So the total deviation below the mean is negative 20. So now the deviation principle tells that the positive deviation should be 20. So positive deviation should be 20. So this number should be 85, so that the positive deviation is 85 minus 65 is positive 20. Since the deviation below mean is negative 20, the deviation above mean means the 65 and above should be positive 20. So he should attain 85 marks in the 5th test. Now we go to key idea 7. So this is about the effect of addition of an extra observation to the average. So it tells us that if we add an observation to the series, it can increase, it can decrease the average, it can increase the average, or it cannot have any effect on the average, according as whether it is greater than the average, equal to the average, or less than the average. So we also explain this idea with an example. So this is the series and its average value is 2. So what happens if we add a number which is greater than 2? So if we add a number greater than 2, for example 3 here, what will be average? The average will be 336 to 819, 9 divided by 4, which is greater than 2. So if we add a number which is greater than the average 2, the value of average will go up. Now what happens if we add a number that is equal to the average? So the average of 1, 2, 3 is 2, and we add 2, one extra observation to this series. Now what will happen to the average? So the average will be 3 to 5 to 7, 1, 8 divided by 4, which is 2. So the average remains constant. The average remains constant. So now we add a number which is less than the average to the series. So we add 1 to the series which is less than the average 2. So now what is the average? Average is 3142617 divided by 4, which is less than 2. So the value of average goes down. So now we form an idea in our mind, that is, if we add a number which is greater than x bar, x bar will increase. If we add a number which is less than the average, the new average will go down. And if we add a number which is equal to the old average, the value of average will remain the same. Now we go to key idea 8. This is about the average of the arithmetic sequence. So the calculation of average in case of arithmetic sequence is very easy. So we discuss it into two cases: when there are an odd number of observation and even number of observation. When the number of observation is odd, the middle number will be the average. For example, in this series, which is arithmetic series, because the difference between the numbers is same, so in this case the middle number will be the average. So the middle number is 6. So we can verify this. Here x bar will be 10, 18, 18 and 6, 24, 28, 30 divided by number of observation 5, which is 6. So now we can consider this general series with 5 observation. So the difference between the terms is k. So now if we find the average, so this 2k will cancel with 2k, k will cancel with 2k, and the sum will be 5x divided by 5, which is x, the middle observation. So this idea can be used to calculate the average in the questions like this. So the average of the numbers, natural numbers from 1 to 9. So here the number of observation is 9, which is odd, so the middle number will be the average. We can verify this. So the sum of the observation from sum of the natural numbers from 1 to 9 is 45 divided by 9, which is 5. So now the average of the natural numbers, sorry, this must be natural, the average of the natural numbers from 1 to 999. So there are odd number of observation. So the middle number 500, the middle number 500 will be the average. So what happens if there are odd number of observation? Sorry, what happens if there are even number of observation? So in case of even number of observation, the average will be the average of the two middle numbers. Consider this series. So there are 6 terms. So the average will be the average of these two middle numbers, which is 8 plus 6 divided by 2 and 7. So we can verify this. The sum of the numbers is 42, number of observation is 6, which is 6. And this is also equal to the average of first and last term. So the average of first and last term is also 7. So in case the number of observation is even, the average will be equal to the average of the two middle numbers or the average of the first and last number. So we can use this concept to calculate average in the questions like this in the exam. What will be the average from for the natural numbers from 1 to 10? So the average will be the average of the middle two numbers or the average of first and last number, which is 5.5. So in this case also there are 1000 observation, so this must be natural numbers, sorry, this must be natural number, average of the natural numbers from 1 to 1000. So in this case there are 1000 observation and this is an arithmetic series. So the average will be 1 plus 1000 divided by 2, which is I think 500.50. So this will be the average. So now we move to key idea 9. So this key idea is rather simple. This relates to median. Median is the central value of the ordered series that divides the series into two parts. When there are odd number of observation of the ordered series, the central value or the middle value will be the average, and when there are even number of observation, the the mean of the two central values will be the median. So in this case median will be equal to the average of these two values, 7 plus 9 divided by 2. So which is, I think, 16 divided by 2 is 8. So the last idea relates to the effect of any departure of extreme values on median. So it says that if we increase the largest number to even larger number, the